It's a little bit of a touchy subject. So, when we started Passage to Profit with iHeart, my husband insisted his name come first and he be the master of the show. And since his law firm was paying for it, I was like, okay. So that's been kind of tough. And we've had many fights over, let me say something every once in a while. Like, I want to ask this guy a question, please. Like, I mean, you know what? There have been times he's really dominated and I've had to call him on the carpet for that. And I don't think I ever do that with him. It is nice to have a co-host. I mean, he has the creds because he's a patent attorney and it's a show for entrepreneurs. So they wanted me to do it with him, I guess, because it made it more interesting because, a patent attorney. They're notably introverts and I'm an extrovert. So anyway, but it has been tough. And then the show I do with Danielle Woolley, she was doing a lot of the work and she started dominating that too. And it was kind of tough for me. So I kind of pulled back on doing some work on that. I'm like, I don't really feel like this is my show. And now it's a little more even. But I think anytime you do a partnership, it's very difficult. The pros are if you really have something scheduled and you get in a car wreck or something, the other person can fill in for you. So that is a pro. And sometimes you're stumped with a guest, like what can you ask them? And the other person can fill in and ask you that. The cons are, everybody wants to be the big cheese, I think, and everybody wants to do the most talking and scheduling, like you said. So for Passage to Profit, we have studio time in New York City, so we have to meet that schedule, right? So that is set in stone. And there have been times my husband has missed it, and I've had to go do it, and I've had another co-host from iHeart fill in for him because I don't really want to do it. I could do it alone, but it's easy. Just the show format is two co-hosts. Jersey Podcasts has been really hard to schedule because we tried to set a set time, but Danielle has a lot of things going on. But I feel like it's too important to not do it. So that has limited the number of guests we can have. So a lot of times it's just her and me talking because we don't have a scheduled time for that. And I'm kind of like this organizer plan. It drives me insane. It's just not the way I like to run things. But unless I was going to sit there and talk about cats myself, which I think could get boring kind of fast. I mean, I would need to get the guests and do all that. And you can do that pretty easily with Podmatch. That's how we found each other, right?
Yeah.
So it's not impossible, but she knows a lot of people that she was so excited at the beginning and wanted to bring guests on. So that made that part of it easier. Would I do a podcast that wasn't storytelling by myself? I think I could at this point because I've had a lot of practice. I don't think I would have started it that way though.
Yeah. Well, so if there's somebody listening and they're thinking, she makes some great points, Elizabeth does, about the benefits. There are some drawbacks, some things to be thoughtful about, but she makes some good points like it makes it easier to ask guest questions, or it allows you to ensure that there is a dynamic that's fun and interesting. And any other thing that we're thinking, oh, if I did it on my own, I would have to do this other work, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned some really good things about the pros, and to be clear on the cons, I feel like one of the things is at some point, maybe one of the two or three co-hosts is going to feel this person's dominating the conversation. I can't get a word in edgewise, or why am I even on the show if it's all about that person? Or in other words, flip it. Hey, I'm controlling the show. I'm using the show. And I didn't even know that I was potentially damaging a relationship with somebody I care about by just trying to have a good show. And right. I thought that they could speak, but they just didn't necessarily speak. It was already flowing. and I didn't even know what I did wrong almost. So
Yeah.
interesting to see that on both sides. And I bet you anything, the reason those two jumped out might have been because I was the dominating. I don't know that 100%, but I could certainly see that now that you've mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one other thing too, is sometimes you got to know which direction you want to take it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're struggling with that with Passage to Profit. Richard thinks it should be more business. I feel like it should be innovation, and trying to define what the core message is of the show. We both have different ideas, and we haven't been able to figure out how to mesh those really. I mean, maybe business innovation is it. I don't know, but that's a hard one too. And I will say, right now I'm running a meetup with Stacy Sherman for podcast and YouTube creators community, and we're doing it for different reasons. And we're running into some issues because our reasons for doing this meetup are not the same. And that could be the same thing with the podcast too.